Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years.
Hi everyone, Sue here from 1A Auto, and today we have a 2011 Ford Fiesta in the shop, and I'm going to show you how to do rear brakes, and that's rear drum brakes. If you need any parts for your car, click on the link below and head on over to 1AAuto.com. So I'm going to remove the tire, and it's a 19mm socket. With the weight of the vehicle on the tire, I'm just going to break the lug nuts free. Now with my car up in the air, I can take the tire off. I have a 2-post lift. You can use the jack and jack stands at home. This has a hubcap on it. I'm going to take that off first. So with the tire stuck like that, take one lug nut, put it halfway on. So now I can take a hammer and hit the back side of the rubber part of the tire. The lug nut stops it from flying off and shooting across the shop. Now I take that lug nut off and take the tire off. They use a Torx bit bolt to hold it down, so it's a Torx bit head, and it's a T40. So we're going to use the impact driver, put our T40 in there, give it a whack. Let's see if the drum is loose. I'll just take a hammer and tap on it. Here we go. I'm going to use a little spray, get that rust lip off right here on that, where the hub meets the drum. So there's this threaded hole right here, and that is a hole to actually back the drum off of the hub. It's an 8x125 bolt, and that's pretty standard for all drums that ever have a hole for dismounting. And you just thread it in. Sometimes you'll be lucky enough and you have drums or rotors that will have 2 holes, so you could actually pry opposite, but sometimes the one will work. When you feel it getting tight like this, just take a hammer, tap it on the side of the bolt. Beautiful. Now we can take that bolt out. It's a nice little handy tool to have in your brake drawer. Let's take that drawer right off. And there you go. So here we have a rear drum system for brakes. So these shoes actually act as the e-brake shoes and the stopping shoes. This is what they call wheel cylinder, and sometimes these wheel cylinders will leak brake fluid. Now a wheel cylinder does come with grease or an oily substance in on the boot. So you can't always peel a boot back and go, oh, my wheel cylinder's leaking, because it's actually supposed to have some grease or moisture in there. This is dry. I got a little bit of grease there. That's not brake fluid. Let's pull this boot aside, because there's a plunger on both sides. Now, if that plunger had blown, brake fluid would just come right out. So now let's make sure they work. I take a small pry bar and I push on that plunger on that side, and I push on this one. Wheel cylinders are working good. They're not frozen. So now we can go ahead and take our shoes off. So I'm going to take the adjuster spring off first, and that's the spring that goes from the bottom of this front shoe to the adjuster arm. And that comes over and hits the actual adjuster lever, and it's an automatic adjuster. So in this car you would go in reverse in a slow pace in like a parking lot, and while it's backing up in reverse you would pump the e-brake handle, and that is supposed to let this adjust it to the proper adjustment. Now I'm just going to get a pair of needle nose in here, and I'm going to grab onto that spring, see if I can pry it off. Now it goes without saying that you do brakes on both sides. So I would not tear the other side apart even after 34 years, I still don't tear the other side apart until I'm done with one side, unless I absolutely have to. But that way you can always use the other side as a reference. There's a lot of cars out there, and I don't have them all memorized. So I'd rather play it safe than sorry. So now we can take the top spring off. Sometimes I use a pair of cutters. A lot of leverage. I'm going to leave that right there because I've got new ones. Now I can pull a little bit on this shoe, probably not too much. There we go. Now I can take my adjuster out of there. That's actually the adjuster lever. And now I'm just going to take my needle nose. I'm going to grab the top of that spring, that flat blade spring, push down on it, see if I can get this to release. If not, I might use a pair of regular pliers. Yeah, because there's not much of a knurl, so I need to really grab that. Now I'm just going to push in on that and then pull down. That's how it works. It's a pretty tight spring. Take the pin out. And now we have the freedom of this front shoe. I'm going to take the adjuster right out of there. Making sure I remember that the adjuster goes towards the front of the vehicle. And you see the bottom spring attached? So I'll grab a pair of pliers. And what I'll do is I'll just grab this shoe, pry it forward. To try to take it off of that part of the actual assembly. There we go. Now there's no tension on that spring. I can take that shoe right off. Now I'm going to discard the bottom spring. And like I said, that top spring's pretty stuck in there. Let's see if we can get it out. There we go. Take a mental note of how it goes with the spring missing on the side, because that's the side where the adjuster is. The spring would be too thick and would hit it. Now we can take the flat spring off. And now you can see, take that pin out. Now you can see that the shoe is attached to the e-brake lever. Parking brake lever, e-brake. And it comes riveted. So our new shoes will actually have this arm already on it. So we're just going to take it off of the actual cable. And this is pretty stiff, it's almost frozen. Just line it right up. So you've got a keyway and then the small piece. So when we install it, I'll explain that better. Now with a wire brush, I'm going to clean up the backing plate where the shoes actually hit. And those are the raised 3 points. There's 1, 2, 3 on each side. Just want to get the rust off because we're going to add brake grease, and that just helps that shoe from sliding without a friction noise. We're going to clean up our hub. We want to get rid of any raised metal. I'm going to spray that down. See what we got. So we have our adjuster that we're going to reuse. It's in good shape and I didn't need to buy one, so I'm going to clean it up, take it apart, remembering how the pieces go and making sure that I see that that space goes towards the fork. Start off, I'm just going to get some brake clean some of that brake dust right off. Let that tip upside down and dry. Now I can take a wire brush to make sure the threads on this have no burrs in them, no buildup. And you can see a close angle of this once I clean it, why there's only one way to install it. Sometimes if you take both brakes apart and then throw all the parts in a box and you think they're the same, they're not. One has left thread and the other side has a right thread count. If you look real close at this, you could see how the angle of the teeth go, and that's for the adjustment. I've taken many of brake shoes apart, systems, and customers are like, geez, I just did those like 8 months ago, I can't believe I need them. And I found adjusters put in backwards, springs missing, there's extra parts. So that's why I recommend doing one side at a time, checking it over, use the other side for reference if you've never done it before. Just take it slow. I'll let that dry. So now that I have my backing plates all cleaned and ready to apply the brake grease, I'm just going to put a nice coating on that on all 6 points, 3 per shoe. So now is the time to put the back shoe on that has the e-brake lever on it. This lever. So we're going to get this to go in here and lock down in. I'm going to show you the way to do that. Before I do that, this is the new shoe, and it comes with the lever, and that's riveted on. And this has just as almost much drag as the old one I took off. I want to assure that that's not going to freeze up. So I'm going to take some anti-seize, and I'm just going to spray it in there. And work it in. Now, there we go. It's wiping excess off. As long as it doesn't get on the shoe material, we'll be fine. And even if it does, just clean it off. And I'm going to rest this right there, so I have it within reach. And we're going to pull that spring back on the e-brake cable. I used 2 pair of cutters. First pair is going to go with the opening towards that spring. Obviously we're not cutting it. I just want to be able to cut into that spring and make it move like that. And you could take your back pair and just notch them up like I'm doing. Hold on to that there. And now that shoe lever will go in real easy. Bring it in, bring it over, let go of the spring. I know, it's magic. So now I'm going to attach this shoe to the backing plate. I'm going to put the new pin through the back hole, right there. This is where these come real, not a lot of fun. Oh, take it back. It's tons of fun. I'm going to line that up. And this is where I use the pliers again. I get it on both sides and see if I'm strong enough. And I'm not. Okay, I have to come at this at a new different angle here. Now I have these angled pliers that I like to use. Try to get that pin and hold it there at an angle that I can squeeze, put this on, and turn that pin at the same time. Ooh, it did get me. Nice. And there we have it. Now that my adjuster is all cleaned and dry, I'm going to put a little anti-seize inside the threads. Coat the threads also. Now I'm going to take my adjuster. Remember the spacer went towards the fork area. And run that down. Now that's coating all the threads inside there. And I just need to put this keyway stopper. You see that little piece of metal right there? So that side needs to face this side because that's where it fits. Fits inside there. I coated the inside of this. There's no threads in there, but that way it'll keep the threads that are in there lubed up and ready to go. So this is going to go in at this angle, just like this. Now we can install the front shoe. So now I'm going to put the front shoe on, and I'm going to put the spring in first. That way I can use it as a leverage to install it on the front. So you run it from the back side, in. I'll put it on the actual secondary shoe first. Primary shoe, I mean. There we go. Now I can hook it. I take these and I just use them as leverage. Fighting with a cat. My tool stuck. There we go. Sorry you had to witness that. All right, so now I'm going to take my adjuster, make sure it's back together properly because it's moved around. Line up it on that notch. Get my adjuster, put it in place. Okay, so we want the staging of this adjuster to go all the way to the secondary staging, which might happen once we get the top spring on. So let's put the side spring, put the pin through. And watch everything fall apart. And now I'm going to put the adjuster lever back in. Sits in place. Let's put that top spring on. That's going to go in here, in the cutout notch right there. And the open area is going to go where the adjuster is. This is where it gets kind of scary. I'm not gonna lie to you, sometimes I don't get this because just the strength isn't there. Now I am not 100% sure if it goes in that hole or this slot right there. So I am gonna go to the other side. I use the other side as a reference and I got it to this one. Now I'm gonna have to get it to that piece right there, that hole. Wish me luck. I know you're all pulling for me. Ooh. Everything's in place, everything looks good. Last one to go in. That goes in this slot down here and gets pulled up. It goes into the adjuster. See if I can utilize that. Now that. Now we're ready to put our drum on and adjust them up. Here we have our new drum that we're going to replace the old drum. And the reason for that is this probably, if I mic'd this, there's plenty of meat to turn this. But in 2019, it's kind of hard in our area to find any machine shops, to be honest with you. So the material and the price of these new drums weighs out the wait time, finding a machine shop, and the price for the labor. So it's easier just to replace them. And the reason we do that, we don't just throw these back on. These are already grooved. You can feel it, feels like a record. And there's a lip right here on the edge. I've seen some people take grinders, grind the lip off, and they're like, I'm in. Well, you're not in because you don't have a smooth surface that you're braking on. And that causes chattering, brake pulsation, and a lack of stopping per footage. So for the price of this, I'm just going to install a new drum and not worry about that. So I'm going to add a little anti-seize on the actual hub, right on the mounting surface. And I'm going to line up the bolt holes. Want to feel that. See how it's hitting? So now I know I've got to adjust this just a smidge out. And there is 0.0 adjustment window in the back because this style is adjustable from the e-brake cable. So for now I'm just going to help it along and I'm going to adjust it up some. I just like to use the hub as leverage and I can get right in there, bring this down, get something out of there. Let's see. Wow, it was almost like I knew what I was doing. All right, so now I'm gonna mount the actual Torx bit bolts right back on there. Use a hammer to seat them properly. So I'm putting pressure on it, turning it towards clockwise. That's nice. That's exactly what we want. If that tire is on, they say you want at least a turn and a half to turn one turn with that wheel of the weight, with the weight of the wheel. Okay, now it's time to put our wheel back on. This has a hubcap that has to go on before the actual lug nuts. So I'm going to line up the valve stem to the valve stem cutout. And I'll just hand start my lug nuts. I'm going to snug them up by hand. $19mm socket. Weight of the vehicle is slightly on the tire, and I'm going to torque my lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. Make sure I go in a star pattern to make sure that this steel rim seats properly on the hub. One more time. Now that the tire is on, torqued on and ready, I raised the vehicle up to see if my adjustment was primo, the way it's supposed to be. So the average drum shoes, once they're torqued, or adjusted properly, shall I say, you should get a full rotation to 1.5 rotation before it stops on its own. Perfect.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at oneauto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.